Good evening. So this month is my turn to have 5 evening sessions because some of you have already attended the evening talks earlier. We made a program of having 5 evening sessions every month as a part of library program to benefit others. So this is my turn. So I welcome all of you to this teaching or talk, whatever you want to call it. So in order to attract you, I give a little bit attractive title called Art of Meditation, which I myself don't know much. But having said that, I must right at the outset want to recall the fact. We all need to recall this fact again and again, that the undeniable fact is that we are here already on this earth. We need to realize this. We are here on this earth already. that doesn't need any explanation. And then there are other facts, like we also know we came from somewhere, but we have no idea from where we came from. Have you any idea from where we came? From where you came? You have any idea? I mean, in this world. I'm not talking about from which country you come from. We have no idea. We know we came from somewhere, but we have no idea. So what we know is we are here. How long we are going to be here? No idea. Have you any idea how long you are going to be here? No idea. We know that we are going to go away from this world, which is called death. But do we know when? Do we know? So that is the issue. That is the issue. These are important points that we must reflect upon. We know we came from somewhere, have no idea from where. We know we are here, but we do not know how long we are going to live. We know we are going to go away, we are going to die, but when we have no idea. So how can we relax so peacefully? That's the question. I mean, this is not a quotation from Buddhist scripture. It's an ordinary quotation, but saying exactly what the Buddha taught. Even when you travel from here to New Delhi or back to your country, you need to make some preparation. Confirm your flight ticket. If possible, make sure that there is a traveling companion. You see, things like that. And make sure that you have enough money for your expenses. Now, to that unknown world where we go, who is going to travel with us as a companion? No travel agent makes that arrangement. And what kind of expenses you are going to make that travel to the unknown world peaceful and smooth? Another very important question. So at least according to Buddhist teaching, the one that is going to help you in all times, while you are here, when you go to the next world, for your kind of expenses, nourishment, so forth, is your spiritual practice. Is your spiritual practice. Now let us think about this a little bit. The formal reading of the text we'll do, but let us use some common senses and think in a way that is, beneficial to us in our daily life. How is it that spiritual practice or Buddhist practice, which is a spiritual practice, is important? Otherwise, people tend to think, what we need is money. Money makes me go. Everybody says, "Changu di yoda the digre." If you have dollar or euro, it's fine. People may say that or may not say that, but it is there in the mind, something like that. And it is, to be honest, it is for that everybody is running like anything. They're not running. They're not in haste for spiritual practice. Very clear. Spiritual practice, His Holiness might give very profound teaching. Other teachers might say many things. And you yourself might attend some of these teachings for a week or maximum 2 weeks. After that, what? Back to square one. Welcome back to the familiar world and continue the same habit. Die-hard habit. Die-hard habit. Not just habit, but die-hard habit. So how can we expect change? So therefore, one thing, at least this is what is taught in Buddhism, I think, and this is what I think is true, at least from my limited experience and perspective, that one very undeniable fact of life is that we all want happiness and peace. And that happiness, peace, also not fleeting peace and happiness, but long-lasting peace and happiness. And I have asked these questions to many people in several countries. And hardly anybody denies that. Everybody says, yes, yes, yes. You want happiness? Everybody says, yes, yes, Geshe-la. For how many days? Then they laugh. By laughing, they are saying, Geshe-la, when it comes to having happiness, it's not a question of few days. The more, the merrier. We need everlasting peace and happiness. So that wish to have everlasting peace and happiness is not something you learned from Buddhism or any religion. It is not something that is taught to you by your teacher and then you started believing in it. It is in your blood. It is how we are born. So there are certain facts like that which we must recall repeatedly when you do the practice. Not just following a tradition blindly without any idea. Relate those teachings to your actual life, how human beings came into being. How they came into being. Like for example, when a child was born, first thing the child does is crying. And when an old man dies, what does he do? What does he do? At the end of the life, when an old man dies, what does he do? Cry. Not so much. Not so much crying, but silent. Stupefied. It's like almost like saying end of everything. Nothing to say. I've seen the world. Nothing much I can get from samsara, kind of gesture, silently. I mean, these are realities that we need to understand. So what I'm trying to say is that you need to confirm repeatedly that you want long-lasting peace and happiness. Make it a slogan. Say that again and again to yourself. I want long-lasting peace and happiness. I think this is called spiritual practice. Because when I tell you something, when you are listening attentively, you know, yes, Geshe-la, this is true. We want long-lasting peace and happiness. But then, after that, you will engage your life in such a way that you want only fleeting peace and not even happiness, fleeting pleasures. See? So that's why we need to constantly make this slogan, I want long-lasting peace and happiness. And having made this slogan, then you need to say, okay, if I want a long-lasting peace and happiness, how can I get it? Second question, how can I get it? From your relatives and friends? I'm not talking about just happiness and peace. I'm talking about long-lasting peace and happiness. Because that is the slogan you made when you came into this world. So are you going to get the long-lasting peace and happiness from your relatives? Do you think? No, this is not something I ask you and then you, just to please me, say yes, no, not from the relatives. No, you have to seriously. हिंदी में बोलते हैं ना, दिल में हाथ रखकर बोलो. You see? Are you going to get the long-lasting peace and happiness from your relatives? Husband? Wife? Money? name and fame. I'm not saying these are redundant, useless. I'm not saying anything like that. But what I'm saying is, are you going to get that? So, meditation means meditate on these things. All the teachings of the Buddha are for meditation. It's not that there are a set of teaching for study, another set of teaching for hearing, another set of teaching for thinking, another set of teaching for meditation. It's not like that. All these teachings are for hearing, for thinking, for meditation. So therefore, let us think about this. Are you going to get that long-lasting peace and happiness from your relatives, friends, husband, wife, brother, sister, name, fame, money, and so on? Are you going to get it? Now, if you're not going to get their long-lasting peace and happiness from those external sources, then from where do you think are you going to get it? Now, several questions can be asked here. When you say, I am not going to get their long-lasting peace and happiness from my relatives, friends, and so forth, then why? Why you are not going to get it from them? Because in the case of relatives, for example, many of the relatives are not so nice. So obviously you are not going to get their long-lasting peace and happiness from them. Even in the case of your amazing brothers, sisters, husband, wife, and so forth, there is a limitation that they can do for you. They cannot enter into the depth of your mind. They cannot think for you. They cannot control your life. Can they control your life? And in fact, what is outside of you, you have no control. You need to understand this one. What is outside of you, your relatives, friends, money, wealth, so forth, however good they are, however beautiful they are, however those people and things may like you, but you have no control over them. And you also need to respect the reality that those things that are outside of you, they have their own life. So it is wrong to think that they are there to entertain you. It's wrong to think that their life is to be sacrificed for your well-being. So as I said, even in the case of those people who want to be really nice to you, there is a limitation that they can do. So at the end of the day, whether you like it or not, you have to take care of yourself. It is through this internal spiritual transformation, not necessarily receiving some blessing from higher forces, but a transformation of your mind, cultivating your mental outlook and attitude in such a way that that is in harmony with the law of nature. The problem arises because we always react against the law of nature. In the law of nature, things are transient, changing, impermanent, as we say in Buddhism. But we want to believe in permanence. I'm going to live forever. I'll construct a big house and I'm going to live there and enjoy forever. You may not say it, but that is what you are, in the depth of your mind, that's how you are thinking and how you are planning. So this is against the law of nature. Law of nature is that everything is interconnected. But you don't see the things in that way. You always think, oh, I can manage. I exist independently. I have nothing much to do with these people. Things like that. You see? So from there arises the problem. So therefore, you need to transform your way of thinking in such a way that that is in harmony with nature, in harmony with the truth, in harmony with the law. Whether it's a tree or a human being, a tree, if the elements in the tree, the constituents in the tree are in harmony, the heat, the moisture, when the air, when those things are harmony, then the tree flourishes, produces beautiful flower. But when these are not in harmony, then the tree starts decaying and falling. Especially, likewise, in the case of human beings also. When your body and mind is in harmony, you flourish. When your mind and body is not in harmony, your body, you may be feeding your body with the latest kind of vitamins and all kind of good food, but your mind is nasty, always angry, hateful, sad, jealous. This is not in harmony with the body. And whatever kind of nutritious food you give to your body, but if you don't give that spiritual food to the mind, you cannot be healthy. You cannot be healthy. So health is not just stretching your body. Health is not only jumping here and not there. Health is health of the body and the mind, and especially the mind, which gives the energy, which sends the air or the wind energy into the body. So therefore it is important to understand this fact that things flourish when things are in harmony. So therefore it is important to understand the way things are, the law of nature. The very important fact that is taught in Buddhism is the need to realize emptiness, which means there is nothing that has independent existence, everything is interconnected, interdependent. Once you realize this, then you realize my body and mind depend on each other, my hand is dependent on the leg, I am dependent on the neighbor, so we all must be nice and cooperate and assist each other. Then everybody flourish, the family flourishes, the society flourishes, the country flourishes. That's the truth, you see. So that's what is taught in Buddhism. So therefore you need to realize this fact that at the end of the day, whether you like it or not, it will be you who has to take care of yourself and who has to be the one that is responsible for bringing their long-lasting peace and happiness. Because if you don't have control over your mind, in other words, let me explain this in a slightly different way. In other words, the mind chases the object. Oh, this is beautiful. Oh, so nice, I must go there. Oh, this music is so nice, I must go there. You see? So to all these countless sensual objects, which are distractions, great distractions, particularly in today's world, the mind goes and chases all these sensual objects. So that means the mind is never in the home. The home is here, in the brain here. But your mind is chasing the object. The home is locked. Nobody is inside the house. It is dusty, rusty, rotting. Nobody is taking care of it. I mean, you have this example. If you go for 3 months holiday and don't keep anybody in your home, when you come back after 3 months, you will see the house is full of dust. Rats are running around, things like that. So your body and your mind, your brain is like that. When you keep on chasing the external object and never be in your own home, that's why you run and run and run and run after all these gadgets and shiny gadgets and everything that floods in the market. You chase after them, run and after them. And after running so much and after having bought all these gadgets, shiny gadgets, objects, still you feel, I'm tired, And still you call all these things facilities. Is this the job of a facility, to make you tired? So from there also you can see, if you want to take rest. If you want to be happy, stay in your home. Just see things, You should be almost like a mirror. See everything, enjoy everything. But don't be caught by these objects. Don't get sucked up by these objects. Just watch. You control your freedom. Okay, beautiful, very nice, okay, enjoy. But you're not after that. I don't like this person, okay. This is his style, his problem, not my problem. I cannot control everybody. Everybody has different features. The fire is hot. It's nature. So I cannot say, oh, fire is hot, therefore I must be, against the fire, fight against the fire, because there is a likelihood that the fire will burn me. You see? You do that is wrong. It's its own nature. So understand the nature of everybody. You cannot control everybody. What you can do is control yourself and make sure that you do not become a victim of the changing situations and events. Don't let yourself become a victim of the changing situations and events. In one of the Mahayana texts, the Buddha says, do not make your mind like a feather of the bird, which is tossed around easily by the slight blow of the wind. You see? Because once you understand the nature of everything, there's nothing much that you develop so much obsession in the form of attachment and so on. And also there's not so much which you should hate from the core of your mind. You see? At the end of the day, everything is like a dream. There is not much you are going to get from anybody or anything. You see? So there is no point to develop so much grasping and get stuck there. So maintain your freedom. That's the practice in Dzogchen also. Don't let your mind chase the object, but rather make the mind as an onlooker. Enjoy the scene. Don't build a house there. Enjoy the scene, you see. So whenever you go around, you see something beautiful, nice. If you get stuck there, then how many times you are going to stuck? This is beautiful, I get stuck there. Next you see another beautiful, I get stuck there. You see, you can see the problem, you see. And today you don't like this person, you get angry. Tomorrow again there will be another. There will be thousands which you will not like. So what is important is just see that different people have different nature. So therefore, happiness is at the end of the day, is in your hand. That you have to realize. This is very important. Remember this. I'm not here to waste your time. I thought about this several times. So I thought that this will benefit you. That's why I'm saying. Because the reality is your husband will die. Your wife will die. Your children will die. Everything will go. So are you prepared to deal with these situations? Are you prepared? This is the bitter truth. However wealthy you are, time will be there when you will not be able to enjoy that. However handsome and beautiful you are right now, is going to fade away. But there is one beauty that will never fade. That's the inner beauty. Inner beauty. So which is your ultimate object of refuge, solace. So that's why I like this word. Bye, take care. Bye, take care. I like this word very much. And this is what the Buddha was saying all the time. Bye, take care. Because nobody says, bye, I'll take care of you. Bye, take care. See, many of you attended my talks earlier, you know that, what I'm saying. But I don't have to say new things every time. I have nothing new to say every time, But I want to remind you that there's some of these important things, you see. So therefore, once you realize this impermanence, the fluctuating situations of human beings, the death, the impermanence, the transient nature of everything, then you are able to develop that very special attitude of sympathy, compassion, love, you see, rather than hatred and anger, you see. This person may be nice to me today, maybe not nice to me today, but one day or the other this person will be gone, either to some place or forever from this world. And also many of these things that people do are out of ignorance. And out of ignorance they are unnecessarily suffering. Unnecessarily suffering. So once you have studied this text and have this understanding, then when people react negatively to you, of course you are also a human being, you are not enlightened, you might get upset and react negatively for the time being, but that will not stay deep in your mind because you realize, oh, I understand, I'm sorry, I was wrong. This person don't know. So therefore he is doing things like that. Then you develop that love and affection and you will never nurture that hatred to anybody. So this is called a spiritual practice. Okay? So that's why now in order to Thus, if the source of long-lasting peace and happiness is your own mind, it's within yourself, then how are you going to cultivate that? How are you going to develop a way of life and way of thinking where you are able to constantly remember this and live your life in such a way that this is in harmony with what you have understood, what you have thought? How are you going to do this? So this is not easy. It needs constant practice. Constant practice. Both from the Buddhist viewpoint and also from the viewpoint of the scientists who talk about the human brain, both come to the same conclusion. And I was reading one book recently, which was a book explaining about the functions of human brain. And it says that a small child, very small kid, and a grown-up man, in terms of the number of the cells of the brain, it's same. There's no difference. It's not that the child has small number of cells and the human beings have more cells. It's not like same number. But in the case of the child, the cells are not connected. Message is not going through. So therefore they are innocent. They have no idea. They are completely dependent. For 1 year and a half, they are not able to even speak. Then it takes probably another 2-3 years to be able to speak. But then still another many more years not being able to take care of oneself. He has to be completely dependent on the parents because the connections are not made. Connections are just making. The child is just making the connection. Now what kind of connection the child is going to make is dependent upon the parents, is dependent upon the environment in which the child is brought up. So see, so important. So if the environment is such that if the parents are fighting, the society is hostile, the connections will be made mostly of those things. So how can you hope to have a child which is peaceful, which is non-violent, which is compassionate? And in Buddhism we say the same thing. Right from the child we should teach them love, compassion, non-violence. We teach the same thing. The child has to form that positive habit. And then gradually, when the child grows up and becomes an adult or a grown-up person, the more you grow up, then you are not, it is so interesting. It is explained then many of these connections that the child has made, millions of connections that the child has made, the synapses we call it, made. Many of this, the child is not able to use it. The grown-up person is not able to use it. They don't use it. They use some of the connections repeatedly, again, depending upon the parent or the environment, they are able to use some of these connections. So the message keeps on going. It's like a path, which you travel all the time. So then you repair the path also, so the path is clear. Then there are some paths which you made earlier, but you never traveled. So then it is covered by dust, stones, and then after some time, it do not remain as a path anymore. So then the connection becomes again reduced. Number of connections become reduced. And you mainly maintain and follow those connections in which you are habituated. So now you can see clearly that what kind of connections from the scientific point of view and what kind of habituations from the Buddhist viewpoint that you have made. If you have habituated yourself with the positive ways of life and thinking, you will act accordingly, you will live accordingly. If you made the wrong connection, it will be very difficult to correct you. You get addicted. This is what is called as addiction. It may be addiction of tea, it may be addiction of coffee, it may be addiction of drinking. There are 100,000 forms of addiction. Addiction, you see. When you get habituated with the bad things, it is called addiction. So we all have this addiction. So the purpose of such Buddhist teachings is to make the positive connection, to get habituated with the positive ways of life thinking. And this is what is meditation. Meditation means get habituated. Meditation is not just sitting in a corner and closing your eye. Meditation means getting habituated with the positive ways of thinking. We'll read this later on in the text itself, where Tsongkhapa says that your mind is controlled, you are controlled by your mind. Clear? You are controlled by your mind. And your mind is predominantly controlled by negative emotions. There's the problem. So the Buddhist teaching says you are controlled. The Buddhist teaching does not say you are controlled by your husband. You are controlled by your wife. The teaching doesn't say things like that. Ordinarily we say, oh, my boss, my husband, my boss, my wife, my boss. We say things like that. But no, they can't control you. They can't control you. The Buddhist teaching says you are controlled by your mind. That's not a big issue. That's not a big problem. The problem is the mind which is controlling you is predominantly controlled by ignorance. Predominantly controlled by negative emotions. Now imagine if a country is controlled by a dictator, big problem. So when you are predominantly controlled by negative emotions, your leader is predominantly negative emotions. How are you going to have that? Forget about long-lasting peace and happiness. How are you going to get happiness and peace? So therefore, right now, our bosses are self-cherishing attitude and self-grasping mind. Self-cherishing attitude, self-grasping mind. Self-grasping mind means seeing things as having inherent independent existence. Self-cherishing attitude means thinking just about oneself and completely ignoring the needs of other people, other sentient beings. So these two are controlling our life right now. They have already captured the headquarters of our mind. They have already, mark my words, they have already captured the headquarters of our mind. And nobody is rebelling. We have already submitted and accepted their dictatorship. And they are just sitting in the headquarters of our mind and sipping nice cup of tea and coffee because nobody is saying anything against them. So that's why the Buddhist teaching says, no, revolt against them. Against the self-cherishing attitude, develop bodhicitta. Against self-grasping mind, developing the wisdom that understands shunya, the emptiness. So therefore, Buddhist practice means to revolt against these negative emotions and to firmly tell them, enough is enough. Gone are the days when you controlled me. Gone are the days when you bullied me. Gone are the days when you cheated me. Now I know. I have some wisdom due to the kindness of my teacher. I know the Dharma. Now enough, I'm not going to submit to you. So if you develop that kind of insight, that kind of willpower, that's called Buddhist practice. Because all these countless teachings of the Buddha, the target is one. How to remove these negative emotions, or at least weaken these negative emotions. And the root cause of these negative emotions are self-cherishing attitude and primarily self-grasping, ignorance. So how to get rid of ignorance, which is the root of all these afflictive emotions? That's the most important thing. Of course, just for study, we can read so many 100,000 texts and, of this scholar, this interpretation, that interpretation. There's no limit. But you don't have to, if you don't have the time, you don't have to do all that. If you're thirsty, you need to drink water, that is for sure. But you don't have to drink the whole ocean. Do you have to drink the whole ocean? This is not necessary. So I'm saying this not because I myself don't know much, but I'm saying this because sometimes it happens that we just go after intellectual knowledge, and engage in intellectual conversation, dry philosophical conversation, and never check the state of our own mind, our own life, and never become kind of a changed person. So dharma is sometimes difficult, but sometimes if you know the trick and if you have the commitment, if you start doing, you can see miracles. So you need to just identify the self-grasping, the ignorance, seeing things as having inherent independent existence. That's my enemy number one. I need to fight against them. Then the rest of the forces of the negative emotions like anger, jealousy, hatred, sit down and think, what is the good thing that you got from jealousy? What is that great thing that you got from anger? Just think. Not just listening to the text, just think, then it will become very clear that these are really have no benefit at all. They only destroy your peace and happiness. That's what we are seeing in the world. Look at the newspapers. That's all we see. These are all result of negative emotions. The infighting, the terrorist, whatever you are saying, it all comes from this negative human mind. You see? So therefore it is important to exercise your brain, exercise your mind and think about the truth and lead a life in accordance with the truth and reality so that you are able to get that long-lasting peace and happiness. You know, another important, interesting point is that when other animals are born, immediately after the birth, they are able to walk quickly after 5 minutes, 10 minutes. You see? Like there are some animals which immediately after birth they are able to swim. I think there are animals probably like zebra, immediately after the birth they are able to run. Now in the case of human beings, can we do all those things after birth? No, as I said already, for 6-7 months we are not able to even lift our head, you know. So on a very superficial glance, it looks like that we are the one which is less privileged. But when you look carefully, then it says, human beings taking such a long time. This is actually a good thing, because the connections are not made. There are a lot of possibilities are there. The animals don't have really much possibility. They're already more or less fully grown up. So not much scope for so much development, whereas human beings have that possibility. As I said, to make those connections, to form those habits, you know, to make all those developments. So there's a possibility, special possibility. In Buddhism we call it precious human life. But in science it talks about all those possibilities in the brain. So that's good news. So that means all of us, irrespective of whatever your age is, we always have this possibility to become better, to get habituated with good things. There was a time when Buddhists used to say, that as far as training the mind, you can keep on doing that even when you become very old. The scientists do not say that in those old days. The old science do not say that. They say you will suffer from dementia, your brain will stop functioning, you know, things like that. Now, the modern science, they are talking about neuroplasticity. That means the more you train your brain, the more it becomes plastic. You see, it remains supple. Remains fresh. So this is again very good news. So therefore it is really important to not just follow a particular teaching. You need to sit down and think. And then change will come. Otherwise, if you follow things as a tradition, you know, not reflecting, you know, and relating it to your life, then it may not be of much benefit. So therefore from this you can clearly see how important these spiritual practices are. And for us, as we are all Buddhists, how important these Buddhist practices are. And particularly in the case of the Buddhist teaching, it really talks about living a life in harmony with the nature. And many of you have studied Buddhist texts and have listened to teachings. And I'm sure you have a lot of idea about those things. So therefore you need to now confirm this fact that it is only me who is going to give me long-lasting peace and happiness at the end of the day. You have to remember this all the time. And make sure that you are not fluctuated, you are not tossed around by changing situations and circumstances. For example, if there is a big earthquake, You cannot say, earthquake, I need to take rest, please don't move. You can't say. It's law of nature, it will move. But how much disturbance you will get from that earthquake, that shaking, is dependent upon how you react to that earthquake. If your mind is trained, peaceful, then you will not get too scared, but rather, make preparations properly right in the beginning, if you are living in earthquake zone. Like, for example, look at the tragedy that happened in Nepal and many places. And Dharamsala, unfortunately, is also zone number 5, which is the high-risk zone. So therefore, in those places, people, when they build houses, right from the beginning, the officials or the individuals, they should realize this and do the construction properly. Then there will be less risk. But again, people don't remember those things. Just to save some money, they randomly construct a house. When there is an earthquake, as we have seen in Nepal, most of the poorly constructed houses collapsed. So from that also, it's spiritual inspiration, you see. What are you going to get is very much dependent upon what you do. We don't have to wait for the next life. We can see that in our daily life. So therefore, it is important to, as I've already explained, you must think about some of these points that I've already explained to you. So that you change your way of thinking in such a way that the changing situations do not trouble you much. It's important. Otherwise, one of your family member dies, you are overpowered with grief and sadness. When you are living together, you are not so nice to each other. We do all these stupid things, you see. But if you are somebody who has that greater understanding, then everybody is your relative. In this life, in past lives, everybody has the same feeling. So how many times are you going to cry? How many times are you going to feel sad? And what is the benefit of that crying? Nothing. Nothing. So instead of just helplessly crying and feeling sad, do something that makes sense. Do something that is beneficial to you, beneficial to others. So that is what is taught in Buddhism. So for all those kind of things, you need repeated reflection, study, thinking, and then form a habit so that it comes automatically. And that takes time. That takes time. So therefore meditation means getting habituated with the way things are. Getting habituated with the reality. Getting habituated means we are habituated with the negative emotions, but not habituated with the positive emotions. That's the problem. So therefore get habituated with positive emotions. There is no push button enlightenment. बटन दबाया रोशनी आ गई, ऐसे नहीं है. There's no push button enlightenment. Stage by stage. Look at the tree. We live in an age of automatic machines, but don't think that spiritual changes will also take, automatically. You cannot help a tree grow by pulling it, or help grow a flower by pulling it, By doing that, you will just uproot it and destroy it. So it has to take the course of the nature, which grows stage by stage. So therefore, you have to have some patience. But then you have to have the conviction that this is the most important thing for me. The others, of course, ordinary people I have to do, for food, clothing I have to do, but they are less important. This is the most important thing, number one. Number two, if you sincerely, genuinely practice these positive ways of life and thinking, and devote at least a good chunk of your life benefiting others, caring about others, planning for the needs of others, your life will be much more happier. Your life will be much more happier. I can say this a little bit in my own case also. Not that I did a lot of things for other people, but interestingly, I'm as a stupid person, I cannot be counted among those intelligent people who always looking, which country I should go, You know, where is it possible to get a lot of money, things like that. I'm not among those intelligent people, you see. So sometimes a little bit, for me, a little bit of stupidity was, turned out to be good. So I used to do whatever has been told. In the school, I used to do what the teacher told me, study very rigorously. In the monastery also, I did the thing, So that way, I got this opportunity to do a little bit of good things for other people. Because of this stupidity or whatever, I never, I could say probably never, planned that I should go there, get a good job, get this money. There was many times opportunity also, but I said, okay, no, it's enough, things like that. So at the end of the day, I'm happy. I'm not a billionaire or millionaire or things like that. I'm not famous, things like that. But still, I'm happy, you see. And I'm sure you all have that kind of experience. So it's not just pursuing the material prosperity. Working for material prosperity, richness is nothing wrong with that if you do it properly. But what I'm saying is, as far as this question of getting long-lasting peace and happiness, it has to be done by yourself, by cultivating the inner positive emotions, by fighting against the negative emotions. So for that you need to thoroughly study how bad anger is, how bad hatred is, how bad attachment is, how bad jealousy is. You need to know, just like enemies. Then you will be able to distance yourself from the incursion of these negative emotions. And likewise, you need to know more about the great benefits of compassion, love, bodhicitta, wisdom, and make friendship with these positive qualities. You come closer and closer to these positive emotions. Then you will have it, you see. You will have it. So with habituation, you will have it. So therefore, meditation means getting habituated with these positive emotions. Okay? So I'm reading a little bit from this Tsongkhapa Lamrim, middling stages of the path. If you have those of you who are English readers, there are 3 volumes of the great stages of the path. So it is in the first volume, I think. So you read that part, okay? It's all there. And those of you who read Tibetan, it is found both in the Lamrim Chungu, Lamrim Ding, and also Lamrim Chemo. You must read this. Unfortunately, this time I could not prepare the text for you. But if you're really, really interested, then I'm sure many of you attended His Holiness Lamrim teachings. How many of you have attended Lamrim teaching? Okay. Now I urge especially the young Tibetans. These books are available in Shirik Parkham or many places. So buy one of it. Be serious about these practices. Otherwise, if you just, if you treat this as a honeymoon period, then you will not get much. And you are fortunate, you speak Tibetan. Look at this, many of our foreign friends. They have difficulty with the Tibetan language. They study so rigorously the Tibetan language so that they are able to read this text. Don't have to depend on a translator which is not so good or having difficulty or whatever, you see. So now you are fortunate, you see. You speak the language, you know how to read, you went to school. So it's a pity. And you have such a wonderful access to such wonderful teachings like this. But if you shut your eye and don't read this, and instead just waste your time by doing many useless things, or once in a while, of course, you need entertainment, that's no problem. But what I'm saying is, if you forget these important things, you're unlucky then. And His Holiness repeatedly was saying, and in my presence 2-3 times, very recently, His Holiness said, "Ta phoba lo shamba desu, ningje, chode ne duwa, ta yakbochi jangsa ragyo na, jang ne dosa ji ragyo na, nga simde duda, ta kharche gore, yi muk si de jure, dende sungu duwa." Rwa, te chude nga zung gen shivu yorda, susu ki tsa chimbo yode, susu ngo ma shi na, en takara sangma mili shor, lungpa shor zare, ta tsa chi shode di shor, en takara, en tilo parchin tawa du dede, 차이 년가 요다 sabsa majena ngozu tanda yang jawru mu chi tukji gani saye tungye dende siyude ene changi chungla gothomne doyeji ene rimbe sangma phama chaayung karba phama chawde ne pugula lobdon shira cheme ding soro chena tabjo worda tama hine gore kange ne the gore tine kawla tes chi tusugi shaksi mena jidu chonam se kewa sangbo yin samne tebdu so nyor ba lo ene kecheti hendal ta diksan yeyo de bal ta geche thwen ding ndo da labge ngozu penzo la khan khan sam yore hendal saja mangbu do tinde le jang tusu su 이제 매직 파게지 지 트럭라지 동면데 고 마데체 차라스고네 양 삼삼 오르나이스 제고 가서 고만이 라비 베네 페제 딘데직 베네 가서로 이나 땅가지고 현다 닝기 디 벽에 간을 튀기요지 양 대와치게 망고 여장에 인지 차죠 잡는 티가시고 가라서로 베네 가 뷰티네 야가요 가요 딘데 차라스 오르나이스나 페제 딘데 청중중 딘데 야 미현다 지글 티로세로 딘데 라 네 트바틸레 자치게는 약보 희우 현로로 차라스 고급 희우 약보르다 야 간섬증네 사제 제보테 레가 제보테 장녀 되네 장섬에 벌립기르다 나 뒤도 제야 말어와 대주도 있고 소소소 가서 그래 경기규에 말 된다며 와 알아봐 so I was trying to encourage the young Tibetans you see having such a wonderful culture religion if you ignore this and go for small things it's a great loss really great loss. So it's important. Oh, dear. Now you have some questions? I mean, reading the text is not a big issue. Some questions? Okay, if you have no question, then let us do a little bit of meditation. Because it's not just talking, but practice. So as I said, the purpose of meditation is to make your mind habituated with the positive ways of life, positive ways of thinking. Second, the purpose of your meditation is to develop awareness. Normally we are not so aware what is happening around us. We see the same person 100,000 times but don't know the name. We pass by the same flower and tree 100,000 times, we don't know the name, which means we are not aware. You see? So you have to have this questioning mind to be aware what is happening. And to be aware what is happening or what is there around you, you need to develop that sensitivity. So that sensitivity can be developed through meditation, and which you can clearly see. Normally, as I said, we are completely controlled by the senses, the sense consciousness. Let the sense consciousness engage in the sensual objects, and mind has not much room to, role to play. It just simply chases the dictates of the senses. Now the mind, as I said, should be the boss, which is, of course, is the boss. So let that mind control in which direction the senses are running, and do not let the mind, senses go into the wrong direction. Okay? So, to start with, one of the very useful practice of meditation, especially for the beginner, is watching your breath. Watching your breath. So in this case, what you need to do is, your hands can be, the physical posture also, it is in the text, you can do it later on, but otherwise you can just, some masters, they say that your hands should be like this, on the knee, or some say it should be like this. Or according to most of the Buddhist teachings, it should be like this. The left hand down, right hand up, forming a triangle at the navel. And the purpose of this is when you do this, then you are able to straighten your back a little bit. Straighten your back a little bit. Straighten your back does not mean to say that you become rigid, because the purpose of meditation is relaxation, not to become rigid and uptight. Okay? But still, if you straighten your back a little bit, then that, helps the spine become straight. And that helps the wind energy flowing through it flow properly and nicely. And then the mind, which is riding on the wind energy, that becomes then sharp and clear, you see. Like, for example, sometimes when you sit like this and read, then you fall asleep, you see. But when you stand up, it becomes, sit erect and read something, your mind is much clearer. So that's the purpose. So now what you need to do is, there can be many objectives on which you can focus, but here we are using our own breath. The purpose is very easy because breath is something that you have with you so long as you live. You don't have to find it from somewhere else. So, and you normally breathe all the time. So therefore just watch it. Imagine that your mind is on the tip of your nose. Imagine your mind is on the tip, somewhere on the tip of the nose. And then watch the breath in its normal process. You can just don't breathe, exhale quickly or inhale quickly. No. Exhale, breathe out, inhale, breathe in, as you normally do. As you normally do. And then let your mind watch on it. The purpose of doing that is to get rid of the negative emotions. Like if you are very angry or you have very strong attachment, then simply like asking them, oh, anger, you are bad, go away. Attachment, you are bad, go away. They will not go just by saying that. For example, if all of you are watching a nice movie, very nice, gripping movie, okay, and you didn't get your seat, and you want to sit down and watch the movie, and if you ask that person who is watching that movie, if you say, please, can you get up and let me give the seat? He will say, no, I want to watch this movie, it's so nice. They'll not give you the seat. But if you say, oh, this movie is nothing but one that is shown outside is so beautiful, if you pretend you're rushing there, they will also start coming out. As soon as they leave the seat and coming out, you go and sit and occupy their seat. So it's like this, you see, you need to trick the mind. The anger, attachment, jealousy, they've completely occupied you. So simply by saying go away, they'll not go. So you need to trick them, you see. So as soon as you let your mind watch on the breath, then the anger and attachment, they don't get opportunity to arise, you see. Their seat is blocked. So it's like that. So therefore watch your breath. Coming out, coming in, coming out, coming in. So in the beginning maybe like exhaling out and coming in, you can count this 4 times probably, or 6 times, depending upon how you feel comfortable. The purpose is you do this meditation until your mind gets settled and is prepared to meditate on positive emotions. So do this little bit, this breathing meditation. Okay, this is just a test. You can do it regularly, not only here. So now it is scientifically found that this kind of meditation, just watching your breath, it's not only good for settling and calming your mind, but it is also very good in removing many diseases like blood pressure. You see? In today's world, when people lead such a hectic life, they develop all kinds of diseases, including high blood pressure and so on. So if you rest a little bit and be with yourself a little bit, many of these diseases can be cured. I'm not just saying it. There are medical evidences for that. So not only for attaining liberation, enlightenment and so forth, but for your own peace and happiness, physical peace and happiness, mental peace and happiness, it's very, very important to keep in touch with yourself through meditation. And normally we are not in touch with ourselves. This is the problem of the modern world. We are in touch with everyone else. There's a Facebook, there's Twitter, there's internet, there's mobile phone, there is what not, I don't know. So many things to keep in touch with other people. What modern technology is there to keep in touch with yourself? Do you use your mobile phone to call yourself? So it's because of not yourself in touch with yourself, you are sick. You are suffering. So therefore, be kind to yourself. Keep in touch with yourself. When you are in touch with yourself, then the healing takes place. There will be less distraction. You are able to concentrate. When you are able to concentrate, you are able to achieve much in both worldly successes and also spiritual practices. When you are distracted, run after everybody, there is no concentration. You are not able to achieve anything. You see, a student spends 11 years in a school. After 11 years, not much. Then another 3 years in college, not much. Then PhD, still not much. I mean, spending 15, 16 years studying, not much. Because you were just following other people, not really concentrating. That's why you don't achieve. When you concentrate, concentration is like a laser beam. When that beam of that laser is diffused, then it doesn't have much power. But when it is concentrated, then it cuts diamond or whatever, steel, it can cut the steel through very easily. So you need to develop this laser beam-like concentration through which you can achieve so many things in a relatively short time. It's because we do everything with half-hearted attempt, we don't achieve much in everything. So therefore, from this point of view also, meditation, concentration, these are extremely, extremely important. Okay? Any questions? Yeah.
If the practice of meditation is so beneficial,
Huh?
the practice of meditation is very beneficial
Yeah.
for the mind and the body.
Yeah.
However, in the Gelugpa tradition is sometimes not so much emphasized as study.
The other way around.
Is the other way around?
The other way around. Gelugpa emphasizes so much on study.
Yes, they emphasize a lot on study.
Yes,
not
exactly.
so much on meditation. Why is that?
That is not so true. In a way it may be true, but in a way not true. Because for that you need to understand the meaning of meditation. Meditation, as I said, is getting habituated with positive emotions. So all this study is making your mind habituated with positive ways of thinking. So meditation, there are two types. One-pointed meditation, analytical meditation. So Gelugpa spent a lot of time doing the analytical meditation, which is at the end of the day is really, really useful because you are able to find things by yourself through analysis, through scrutiny, through judgment, not just focusing. Okay? All right? Good night. I said good night. See, this is another interesting teaching, you see. Nobody says bad night. See? So this all this shows, we need to be good, we need to be happy, you see. But then look, good night, you say good night, then after that you start fighting, I mean, this is what we do, this is the tragedy, you see. We say good morning, good afternoon, good evening. I mean, how can the morning be good and evening be good and afternoon be good if you are not good, you see? Okay, good night again, thank you. Thank you.